Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today, we are hosting our third panel discussion on social inclusion and participation of immigrants through media literacy. This event is a part of a joint project by Turkey Research Foundation in Istanbul and the Plus Institute in Vienna. It is an Erasmus Plus project funded by the European Union and Turkish National Agency. And it addresses the needs of people with fewer opportunities and broaden their accesses to the means and the programs in the fields of education and training. This specific project that we are part of it now is aiming to provide theoretical and practical training programs for young immigrants who have completed their degrees abroad as a children of immigrant families. It also aims to foster their consciousness, who often feel underrepresented, politically underrepresented in their host countries. So our discussion is today will be on media representation in multicultural societies, increasing awareness and breaking stereotypes. So today we have two distinguished guests among us. Our first guest is Professor Zaur Gasimov, and he's an associate professor in political science and international relations department at Turkish-German University. Professor, welcome. And our second guest is Salih Hafez, and he's a PhD candidate in sociology at Ibn Khaldun University. Welcome, Salih. So the panel structure is every speaker will have first 10 to 15 minutes of presentation, and then we will move forward with a discussion section. I want to start with Professor Zaur. The floor is yours, Professor.
Thank you very much for having me here. It's a great topic and a great opportunity to share some reflections on migration and also on media representation, or maybe also on self-representation of migrants in the media of the host country, and also of the representation of migrants by the so-called majority society or majorital society. So coming to the aspect of alleged stereotypes or true stereotypes or all the time vital stereotypes or whatever on migration. I would very much like to share with you some of my own findings from the project I have run at the University of Bonn within of the grant of the German Research Council on the personality of Ahmet Caferoğlu. Ahmet Caferoğlu was a Turkish linguist of Azeri descent, or one could describe him as a migrant from the Russian Empire and from the Republic of Azerbaijan to Turkey, who became a professor at the Istanbul University in the 30s and coined the development of Turkology in the Republic of Turkey until his death in 1975. So I will talk shortly about him and about my book that is finished now in form of a manuscript, and I hope very much that until the end of the year would emerge in form of a book. Ahmet Caferoğlu was born in 1899 in the Russian Caucasus in the city of Ganja, and had a very turbulent childhood on the periphery of the Russian kingdom. He attended a his own native town, the town of his birth, Ganja. Then the family moved to Samarkand, to Central Asia, also under Russian control, and he attended the Russian school over there. Then he came back to the Caucasus, and his family sent him to a grammar school in Ganja, and then he attended the Institute of Commerce in Kiev, that became the capital of Ukraine later on. In 1919, when the Republic of Azerbaijan was created, and, a year before that, on the ruins of the Tsarist authorities, he was enrolled at the University of Baku at the Department of Oriental Studies. And a couple of months before the Red Army invaded into Azerbaijan, he left for Istanbul. Started at the faculty for letters at the University of Istanbul under the scientific um, um, leadership of Fuat Köprülüzade. And in 1925, he graduated from the university, obtained a scholarship for Germany, and went for PhD studies to Berlin and then to the University of Breslau. So we're talking about the student mobility times, maybe a century ago, so long before the social media came out, and things which are very, very usual for us in our everyday life. But and after he accomplished his PhD studies in 1929, he decided to come back to Turkey. So Turkey became for him, it was not the country where he was born and socialized, but it became a certain second motherland, or a host country, which became a very special one for him, because at the end of his life, he spent two of or three quarters of his life in Turkey. So Istanbul became a place where he lived, where he worked, where he became a professor from studentship, like performing all the formation, all the academic way, from the student status to the professor of the history of Turkish language in 1938. And he published in 45 volumes of the history of Turkish language, and he collected the examples of the dialects of the Turkish language from the Eastern Anatolia, making a path-breaking publication on the dialectology. So he is considered as one of the fathers of Turkish dialectology until now in the year of population. So what he did as a migrant in the Turkish society, he set up two journals of his own. In 1932 until 34, he published in Istanbul the Azerbaijan European History. It was a semi-academic journal where Fuat Köprülüzade published as well, and many other Turkish scholars. So he was an activist, boss of Azerbaijani national organization, which existed in Istanbul, but also as a Turkish scholar and also as a public intellectual. During the Second World War, he set up in Istanbul the journal Türk Amacı in 1942. That existed until the crackdown on the Panturanists. It was a famous deal in the early 40s. So the journal existed for 1.5 years, but was an important platform for intellectuals. And in 60s, he again reacted very emotionally on the crisis in Cyprus, on the treatment.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you please take your microphone closer?
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
in 60s, when the crisis in Cyprus came up, Jafaroglu reacted to that as a very active activist, as a Turkish intellectual, with his very strong pleading for NATO engagement, for Turkey's engagement in that field. So we looked, and we could see that his way from a migrant in 20s, he got Turkish citizenship at the end of 20s, so he was naturalized in Turkey, and became a very active member of the society. And maybe now, trying to sum up my short talk, I would suggest the of large-scale integration of a migrant into the society he or she lives is to try to integrate oneself with the media, with the local media, with the media of the host country, trying to be vocal, to articulate their own ideas and their own point of view, using all utils, all instruments the host society possesses. It's not all the time very easy. For instance, Jafaroglu, he published not only in his diasporic journals like Azerbaijan Youth Bilgisi was, but he published also for the journal Türk Kültürü, Türkiye Mecmuası. The articles of academic content were published in the linguistic journals, but the articles on Cyprus, on whatever, so which were not academic, but were designed for the broader auditoria, they were published in the journals which covered a broader array of topics. And that's very important, I guess, for migrants in current times. Nowadays, it doesn't matter where they live, that they try to articulate their wishes, their standpoint, and their position with regard to everything, to the education policy, to the foreign policy of the host country, to the internal politics, to the views on migration. You know, maybe one migrant is content, another is discontent. Those who are content can write about that. Those who are discontent can do the same. And the ways of writing in nowadays became also broader. You know, if 30 years ago or 40 years ago, in the newspaper, the only type where you could present your opinion on this or that, now you can pursue a blog, you can write comments, create your own YouTube channel, you can go viral. So there are, I don't talk now about TikTok and about many other different arts of social media, but we cut, or I have the feeling that there was a problem with the internet. No?
Yeah. Yeah, your
Oh, it works. It works.
yeah,
The flow goes.
voice
Yeah.
is going
I
sometimes.
would say maybe so that it's the possibilities currently nowadays are much broader than they used to be 50 years ago for presentation of the own opinion and for self-representation at the end. I mean, if you would look at the Ukrainian diaspora in US or in Canada 60 years ago, so they set up journals in Ukrainian language, talking about their ethnic concerns or confessional concerns and stuff like that. So now the possibilities are, of course, much much broad. So you can create virtual museums, you can create a virtual. So we are on air, I guess, right?
Yes. Your connection is going again,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, so now I see you and I hear you. Yeah, I would say maybe concluding as a concluding remark that what is important is the very active participation of migrants themselves on self-representation and on representation using all kinds of media outlets which are existing in the host country. So not only newspaper or journal, but also television, radio, blogs, internet, social media, and so on. And also the codes. The codes are very important. That each host society has its own codes of getting information, of getting informed, and that is a quite difficult job to meet the codes and to articulate the own standpoint using the communication culture of the host country and the places where that function and the groups which get the point, which are able to touch the essence of the communication culture, they can be successful. I truly believe in that. So thank you very much. Looking at the time, I would stop here, and I'm very thankful for you for invitation and for the possibility.
Thank you for your insightful talk. Now we will move to Salih Hafiz to listen his presentation. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
So is there any problem regarding my voice now?
Your voice is good.
Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. For having me here, and many thanks to Professor Zaur for his contribution and fascinating talk and information. Well, talking about migration and the role of media in this regard is a very important topic. Has great impacts on our present and future. I would prefer to some so first of all, in the last decade, in the last 20 years, actually, we have very radical changes in the region, the Middle East and Africa, and still ongoing. We can talk changes and border and clashes in neighboring countries, civil war, and warring clashes in Iraq, Russia and Ukraine. In the last year, and still also it's South Sudan from now the ongoing war in Gaza Strip from the last year, 2023. And unfortunately, I can say that African countries.
Sorry, Salih, your connection is we cannot hear you. Your connection is going. Can you hear us now?
So is it clear now?
Your video is not clear. Your video is not clear. Now it's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that, yeah, unfortunately, some other different, African countries on the edge, and clash or civil war may erupt in any moment. All these radical changes trigger new waves of migration, which means that neighboring countries would suffer from similar problems as we are talking about. To give some numbers, according to a World Migration Report launched by the International Organization for Migration, more than 280 million international migrants, we can talk about them today. And from this number, we are talking about more than 117 millions displaced. And actually, these numbers lead us to think about the causes and the stimulating factors that leads to the rise of xenophobia and populist policy, especially in the last decade, since there is a great, wave of migrants, refugees around the world. There's also a reaction from host countries and from the neighboring countries to the places or the countries that witnessed or suffer from instability and clashes. So actually, we can trace the populist policy and the xenophobia in securitization process and securitization policy. And this can be classified or traced under four main categories: national security, economic security, cultural security, and internal security. In fact, I would focus on cultural security and try to bring to light some themes in cultural security, because I think that cultural security problem and the themes regarding it form a future risk in terms it provides populist policies and xenophobia provides to them the moral and intellectual basis. So the actors taking place in this process can be classified as extreme right wing, the wing that invest very great and extreme polarization. The next important actor is media and social media, and here we can talk about the role that media plays, the fundamental role in empowering or resisting against these policies. That's why I'm trying to bring to light the cultural dimension, so that we can build, or we can then talk about resistance using media or employing media to resist against the cultural securitization dimension. So examples of the cultural security, we can see that this theme is productive and construct, as I said, a moral and intellectual basis of populist policies. One of the main examples, I think, is the Great Replacement theory. This theory has roots in 19th century. Today we can talk about spreading in the US and some Western countries, and we can talk about a rebirth or revival of this theory again. It's widely spreading, not only in Western countries, but we can see that it spread outside the continent, the European continent, moving to Africa also. I will give some examples after minutes. The core idea of the Great Replacement theory is the claim that there is a real trial to replace white citizens with non-white immigrants. And here we see how race plays a fundamental role in constructing new cultural security theme to push politicians and to push also societies to adopt this discourse. Another example can be seen in actually Turkey, in some Turkish politicians' discourses, when they focus on birth rates of migrants and refugees in Turkey, and talk about how this can or will form a threat to Turkish population. It's also we can talk about this theme as a very connected theme to the cultural security thing, moving around birth rates. Another interesting example, and I can say that this example is still in the first levels or in the first steps, is Kemet Suns. A stream in Egypt began in the last 5 or 6 years and is moving fastly. This stream calls itself the Sons of Kemet, and the people that adopt this stream believe in the purity of Egyptian race and attribute themselves to be the builder of the pyramids. They going back to the pharaonic period and claim themselves to be the sons of the pharaonic. More interesting thing that they deny any connection to Arab, African, or Islamic affiliation, and they say we are just connected to the pharaonic civilization or the pharaonic period. So again, we see another cultural effort to make base or to construct a new base in history and find a new origin, and then move to the present to securitize migration topic. Of course, this stream also looks to migration and all migrants as risk and threat to the Egyptian identity. This also leads us to talk about stereotypes, because these themes cannot live and cannot sustain without stereotypes trying to empower these stereotypes by media. One of the main stereotypes is color, race. We can see this in the last examples in Turkey and Egypt. Another important stereotype is the relation between migrant profile and jobs and aid. So many claims in the host countries about how migrants take jobs and take opportunities from locals. And I can talk about some field observations I witnessed in the field while making interviews. So some interviewees expressed racist discourse they faced in workplace, and one of them was talking that he knows 4 languages, and when one of the client came to talk with him, she said that you don't deserve to be here, my sons deserve to be in your place. So the perception of how migrants can work or where should he or she works is another problem and stereotype from populist politicians invest very much on this theme. Well, finally, I would talk about future risks if this cultural security theme or this cultural security dimension continues and get more power due to the media or due to social media influencers. One of the main problem is underrepresentation of migrants in public spaces and media. Another one is damage in identity and language. We can trace this especially in bilingual families. Some families have 2 or 3 languages, but we can see that children face a real problem and suffer from shortage in mother language and the new language. You can see this in Syrian migrants, especially in Turkey, and some, of course, Syrian or different nationalities live in Europe. Mother language is not very good, especially in the second generation of migrants. Another future risk is more instabilities in the host countries and demographic changes in the region. In the first point, I talked about radical changes happen in Sudan, Syria, and Iraq, and all these things points to demographic change in the region. So instability and demographic change and problem of identity, when they collect together, we cannot talk about stability in the future. Unfortunately, cultural security empower the instability of the region. So finally, I want to stress on the main points, or the most important points I see. First, the need to debunk myths and racist efforts in media, and to spread awareness about the influence and the threat that some cultural themes can construct in the future. Second, the need to resist against stereotypes, depends whether it depends on race or depend on culture, or some myths regarding to works, jobs, and the opportunities or aids that some politicians claim that migrants take. Finally, spreading awareness using media can contribute on decreasing the underrepresentation of migrants and open some space to them in public space. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for your contributions. I think it was very valuable. First, listening from Professor Zaur, the possibilities, the opportunities of media, and then moving to you, Salih, to listen to the risks and the disinformation and misinformation of media, and how it functions in our contemporary society and in the political atmosphere currently we are having now. So I want to ask a question to Professor Zaur. You said you gave us a overview of how Ahmet Caferoğlu, like how his efforts on like articulating himself as an immigrant, and you said so the possibilities are much broader right now when we look at in the past. So actually Salih took that and commented on that by giving today's problems. So I would love to ask, what are the disadvantages of these possibilities, and how and in what ways media can leverage all these disadvantages, and what can be done actually to prevent all of those risks?
Thank you very much for your question. I guess maybe we should somehow say farewell to the expectation that the media would see the problem all the time in one way. It would be all the time very various, a certain diversity of opinions and of views on the same phenomenon. And we would all the time and everywhere have a situation when one part of the population, of the majority of population of a host country, would perceive the migrants positively, another part would see them more in negative terms. And that touches also, I guess, everyone in society is at least not racist. Of course, I am not talking about them who condemn the migrants just of being migrants. I guess that's a very tiny part of population around the globe. But what we very often witness is a situation when people say, okay, if the migrants are well integrated, if they speak the country of the host country, and they respect the laws of the host country, and if they try to integrate themselves into the society, very often it's perceived as the linguistic ability, as the knowledge of the language. That if that's what you hear, that if that's what you are well, everyone can say, okay, whether the person speaks a language good or not, so you hear it if you are a native speaker. So that is something what is very important, I guess, both in Europe and outside of Europe. But Saleh has touched also another aspect, which is important from the point of view, of course, of the migrant community, to preserve the mother tongue, to preserve the native culture. And we see here a quite different perception, maybe, of the aspect. The majority of society expects integration, acculturation, very often it's called, or assimilation to the culture of the host society. The migrant community, even if it is willing to get integrated, to have a better command of the language of the host society, in the same time, it's vitally interested in preservation of its own culture, language, confession, customs, and so on. So it's a very difficult task to bring these two wills, two wishful maybe expectations into one context. Also suggest all the time, or maybe reduce somehow, diminish somehow the integration as the of course, a very good command of the language of the host society and respect for laws. Normally, it's the case across the Middle East and also in Europe. The migrants are free to preserve their own language, speaking it with their kids. Of course, from time to time, we hear in the milieu of the populist politicians saying that they should speak also at home the language of the host country, but I mean, it's not the mainstream thinking in the political establishment worldwide. But now I come to the point which is maybe of importance in the issue of the preserving of the language in the migrant society. If you have a situation where a child attends a school in the host country, the school and the hours which every child spends in a school are very, very have a very strong impact on him or on her. It's the morning hours, and very often the child stays also at school in the afternoon. And even in case being picked up by one of the parents and being brought at home, very often the child stays alone with the television in the country of the host country. So that is that is not primarily the task of the host society to organize and to create the all possibilities for the migrant community for preserving of their own languages. That would be a huge, huge task. I mean, what I see in the German experience, actually, we have this case only in, I guess, only in the federal land of Rhineland Westphalia. We have the so-called mother tongue instruction at schools. So the parents can choose at every school, which are German schools. They can say, okay, my child would attend once a week the instruction of Polish language, Turkish language, Arab language, or Persian language, or Pashto and other languages, and should choose the school where this language is attended. And very often there are schools which are kilometers way off from the house or from the place where the family lives. So you have to bring your child there. The opportunity is there. It's only in the ground school, in the first, second, third, and fourth class, and only in the federal land of North Rhine-Westphalia, which is the biggest, with regard to population, the biggest federal land in Germany. It can be a certain transfer of practices around the globe, but it's up to the parents. That's the task of the parents to preserve the community language with their children. And I would say maybe that would sound very drastic. It's not the task of the host society to provide it all. Otherwise, it's you should see the migration. Migration is a chance. Migration is a challenge. At the same time, particularly if this migration is not like state-backed migration of the IT specialists from the country A to country B. If we talk about wars and migration waves caused by the warfare, it's more a refugee crisis, and it's very hard and difficult to face the refugee crisis. And the question of the preservance of native language in the migrant community becomes not the priority, of course, for the host country, what is understandable.
Thank you very much for all those points. I think, yeah, as you said, you know, the terms assimilation, social integration, all the terms are, you know, like is discussed in migration terminology, I would say, and there is no consensus. And as you said, like preservation of the language maybe like plays an important role within that sense. So I also want to turn to Salih. If you want to any other comments or points to add to Professor, or maybe on stereotyping you mentioned on that, anything that you want to add, please.
Thank you for your contribution, and many thanks to Professor Zaura for his contribution on language issue, especially, and identity. Actually, yes, Professor, and especially when countries face a refugee crisis, urgent refugee crisis, priority change. And many countries cannot focus on language and identity issues and cannot make them or deal with them as the first priority. But after years, I mean, some crisis or some especially refugee crisis began about 10 years ago. So there is enough, you know, we can talk about enough time for countries that they should have been get enough space and time to deal with the crisis. And after 1 decade, it's important to evaluate whether this policy, whether refugee policy were in general efficient and positive or negative on security and culture sides, security dimension and also cultural dimension. So after 10 years, for let's say for Turkey and for Egypt and for let's say Lebanon, for many countries, for main host countries in the region, it's important to evaluate this decade, at least to get lessons to the future. Because unfortunately, instability in the region will last. We cannot talk about we cannot talk about good future, at least for 1 or 2 decades. Many problems, clashes, we can say, on the way. So the last decade and whatever every country faced or witnessed is very important if can can be estimated and can bring to light new lessons. So Turkey and Egypt and Lebanon, Jordan can regulate and can form new policies, moving from the experience they got to preserve identity and language of new migrants, and to find, let's say, a new equation far from assimilation, because it doesn't work in the region. So far from assimilation, but also can preserve the social and cultural, let's say, contract and stability in the host country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contributions, and I think that was a very fruitful panel, and we delve into both the risks, opportunities, and other remarks, and so many themes came out, like, as you said, language barrier, preservation of the culture, risks, and right-wing populist policies. And thank you again. We hope to see you in another opportunities, and I really thank you for all your remarks, to Professor Zaur and to Salih Hafiz. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Zainab. Thank you, Salih. And it was great
to
thank you, Zainab.
to talk with you.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
You too.
Nice.